Hello everyone and welcome to Pepcoding. So today in this class we are going to discuss the solution of pattern 3. So in this pattern we are given an integer n, and for that integer n we have to draw this type of star pattern, right? So let's first discuss what to do in this. So this is our pattern. First of all, let's check out what is the input for this. So there are 5 rows in this pattern. So input for this will be 5. So whatever input is given to us, we have to draw, we have to print that much number of rows in our pattern. Now we can see that in this pattern we have some stars and some spaces, right? So let's count the number of stars and spaces in each row, right? So these are stars. First we have spaces, then we have stars, right? Next, let we write the row in which we are present, right? So in the first row we have 1 2 3 4 4 spaces and 1 star. In the second row we have 3 spaces and 2 stars, right? The third row we have 2 spaces and 3 stars. In the fourth row we have 1 space, 4 stars. Fifth row we don't have any space, so we have 0 space and 5 stars, right? Next, we know that in order to print such types of pattern, we have to iterate, we have to traverse in each row. First we have to go to first row and we have to print the number of stars and spaces. Next we have to go to next row, right? So we have to traverse from first to fifth row, right? So for traversal we can use a for loop. Now we know that the for loop, the range function, in range function the upper limit is exclusive, so here we have to write n plus 1. So this loop will go from 1 to n, right? Now this I is telling us the row in which we are present, right? So here this is I, right? Next we want some spaces and some stars. In the inner part we want to print some spaces and some stars, right? Now we can initialize, we can use two variables, right? One is space, one is star. In order to print these spaces and star, these different number of spaces and star in different rows, right? So firstly we have to initialize these two. So we can initialize these two variables with the values depend upon the first row, right? So in the first row we have 4 spaces and we have 1 star. If I draw a pattern for n is equal to 3, right? For n is equal to 3, here we have 2 spaces, right? Here we have 4 spaces for n is equal to 5. So we can write 4 as 5 minus 1. Similarly we can write 2 as 3 minus 1. So we can initialize the spaces with n minus 1, right? Because 5 is what n here, 3 is what n here, so we can initialize the spaces with n minus 1. Now here we can see that, let me erase this, right? Spaces are starting from n minus 1, stars are starting from 1, right? Now here we can see that as we move from first row to the next row, the spaces are decreasing by 1, right? So here we have to decrease the spaces by 1 and the stars are increasing by 1, right? So here we have to increase the number of stars by 1, right? So let's have a look on this code. So first we need a loop for traversing in each row, right? This will run from 1 to n, right? Now we want two variables, one for stars and one for spaces. We have to initialize the stars with 1 because we have 1 star in the first row, and we have to initialize the spaces with n minus 1 because we have n minus 1 spaces in the first row, right? Now let's print the spaces and stars here. Firstly we are printing the spaces, next we can print the stars. right? Next, we are decreasing the spaces when we are moving from first row to the next row, right? And we are increasing the stars when we are moving from one row to the other, right? So this means we are increasing the space variable by 1, and we are increasing the star variable by 1. Sorry, we are decreasing the space variable, right? Because in the first row we have 4 spaces, then we have 3, then we have 2, then we have 1, right? So let's check the output of this. So we are getting 4 1. The value of space variable is 4, the value of star is 1. So this is what we want 4 spaces and 1 star. Next we have 3 spaces, 2 stars. Yes, we want 3 spaces, 2 stars. Next we have 2 spaces, 3 stars. Yes, we want 2 spaces and 3 stars. Next we have 1 space, 4 stars. Yes, we want 1 space, 4 stars. Next we have 0 space, 5 stars. Yes, we want 0 space and 5 stars. So this is what we want, right? Let's make a memory diagram for this code. Right? So in the memory diagram, we are taking firstly an integer n. Let's the value of n is 5. Next we are taking two variables, a star and space. The value of star is 1 initially, and the value of space is n minus 1. In this case, the value of space is 4, right? So next we are taking a for loop in which we are taking a iterator I, right? Firstly, the value of I is 1. So it is printing on the console the value of space variable and the value of star variable. Now the value of space variable is decrementing by 1, and the value of star variable is incrementing by 1, right? Now the value of I is 2. It is again printing space and stars. The value of space is decrementing by 1. Stars is incrementing by 1. The value of I is 3 now. Again it is printing space and star, right? The value of space is decrementing, star is incrementing, right? Now the value of I is 4. It is again printing space and stars. The value of space is decrementing, star is incrementing. Now the value of I is 5. It is again printing spaces and stars. Now the value of spaces is decrementing, value of stars is incrementing. Now the value of I is 6, but the range is from 1 to 5 only, right? Because this 6 is exclusive, right? So this loop will only run from 1 to 5, right? So for the value of I is 6, this loop will not run and will come out of this for loop, and we are getting this in our output, right? Now this is what we want. This is representing spaces, this is representing stars, right? But in the output we want 4 spaces right here, 1 star here, 3 spaces here, 2 stars here, right? Now in order to get 5 spaces right repeatedly, we can use a for loop here, and in order to get the number of stars we can use a for loop here, right? So here we have to use two for loops, one for spaces and one for star. Now we want how many spaces, the number of spaces as specified by this space variable, right? So we can, now this for loop will run from 1 to sp time this space, this number specified by this variable, right? So we want that much spaces, so we'll print that much spaces here, right? Next we want the number of stars specified by the star variable, right? So this loop will print us the number of stars as specified by this variable, right? Print stars. Now we want some spaces in between two stars, right? So we are using \t here. Now after each row, after each change in the value of I, we want a new space. So we are writing a new space here, right? So this is our code. Let's try to run this. So we are getting the expected output. Let's try to submit it. so our code gets submitted, right? So what are we doing? We are only controlling these two variables, the star and the space variable. If we have a control on these two variables, then we can easily print that much spaces and that much stars in our desired pattern, right? So we are only controlling these two, and this loop is for traversing in each row of the pattern, and we are getting our desired pattern, right? So I hope you understand this pattern. If you like the content, then give a like on this video. We'll meet in the next video. Thank you for watching.